of Da Vinci's Demons. We hear it's going global. What can you tell us about the upcoming season?
Bigger, better, longer. No.
It is longer. It's 2 episodes longer.
You start because I'm opening my thing.
Yeah, well, we're basically expanding the show to taking a journey for almost all the characters, both geographically and emotionally. So all the characters are going to be thrown together in
different combinations.
Yeah, different combinations you wouldn't expect, different dynamics, people that you haven't necessarily seen working together will have to work together, and not just in Italy. Yeah,
what we got? It's not just restricted to Florence and Rome. We'll be spending a lot of time in Naples, a lot of time in South America, Genoa. We're not supposed to say, but
Don't.
Another place, another country, not South America or Italy, not part of Europe. Mm-hmm. Maybe the gateway to Asia. But Asia is on our. It's funny. I read recently about that document, that early document from Lost that leaked on the web, where it was like, it will not be a serialized show, and we will solve every mystery. And we kind of did something similar on this show when we were getting it going, where we said, don't worry, it's all going to be based in Florence. And my intention was that it was kind of a road show it's a quest show.
Right.
So my intention was always that we were going to be going all over the world. And so we had a similar document in which I just lied about everything. But now Starz is okay.
Yes, I mean, it's a strange double-edged sword, because there's 2 versions of Leonardo. There's a version that in the research I did about how he behaved in his 20s and what he was like is a version that isn't really known. Mm-hmm. And there is the version that everyone thinks and the expectations everyone has. Mm-hmm. And so you try and do justice to the version of him that the research showed, and the very sort of, just the other week I read a really interesting letter he wrote to a duke in a separate town outside of Florence, that was the most arrogant, like a borderline unpleasant letter I'd ever read. Right. But the thing is, everyone has this man in their mind who is far wiser and thoughtful and philosophical, and that is the man we're heading to. Mm-hmm. It's just going to take some time to get there. So it's holding your water. That's the pressure. That's what I feel is holding back on where he's going to be, in favour of the more sort of cocky version. It can be a hard decision, but worthwhile.
Also, I think, and maybe you said this while I was grabbing something to blow my nose, but I think that our general conception of him is this sort of Merlin-like, bearded figure, and that's just really it. I mean, he may have been like that at the end of his life, but if you read the accounts of his younger life, he was quite funny. I mean, by our standards, they're not particularly funny, but he published a book of jokes. Mm-hmm. I'm not kidding, and he liked to do pranks and things like that, and he was a vegetarian. He was an odd guy.
Right.
And
I just read a thing that isn't in the show, but it should be, season 3, that he used to inflate balloons in the corner of rooms, just as a part of an experiment, so no one could get out. So they'd be going, "What is this?" And then they realised it was the entire
they were bladders.
Filled with pigs' bladders.
He would literally inflate these pigs' bladders so that they would get like to the size of 15 feet in diameter. And although
that's not the version of Leonardo people have in their heads, though.
But also that we were in Florence last year when we were premiering the show, and we were doing this historical tour, and they said at one point, which I loved, and this is the sitcom version of the show, that Leonardo da Vinci and Botticelli had a restaurant on the Ponte Vecchio briefly that they ran, and it wasn't successful because they were more concerned with like the presentation of the food than they were with.
It's the 2 broke girls version of Da Vinci.
Yeah, but that was true, and I just love that.
Yeah, it's as I said on the panel yesterday, it's very difficult to connect with the greatest mind in human history in a way that will ever do justice to that side of him. But I always believe that he didn't see his intellect as something that was all-consuming. It was a necessary side dish to the rest of him, so it's really the more human moments and how he connected to the people around him and the relationships he had, that was the stuff that I could bring from my life into his. And that sort of striving for perfectionism and the occasional self-loathing and the never believing you've done well enough and always trying to or never being able to concentrate on one thing at a time and leaping from subject to subject. That stuff is universal, and that's the stuff I tried to bring to him, and then the stuff I found out about him that came into my own life. For example, something that I have to stop doing because it's something that now comes very naturally is I read a lot that he was somewhere on the autism spectrum. A lot of people speculated that because a part of his mind may have been opened. He was. So I have autistic relatives. I wanted to spend a bit of time with them and see what kind of things they had. And one of them has a finger twitch, a very slight, when he's working something out. And then I watched a documentary since
is that where that came from?
Yeah, and I watched a documentary since it about someone, another autistic young man who, whenever he was working something out, would do it with an imaginary abacus in the air. That was originally just mathematical problems, and then it became everything. And I just thought that's a very interesting thing. He did it like this, which would have got in the way of every shot. But that I find, I've done it in the show, and now every once in a while when I'm working something out, I feel a finger twitch. I have to go, no.
Sometimes I had to tell you in the first season to calm it. I called it the finger twiddling.
Yeah.
But I'm told by people around me that I can be quite funny, and but it was fun to write stuff that had some lightness and had some humor in it, and I mean things get very grim and portentous in Gotham City and Metropolis, and certainly with Blade, he's a bowl of laughs. Yeah, it's. I mean, Hollywood likes to pigeonhole you. So in the feature world, it's like, write this grim, dark, gritty hero thing, and it was an opportunity. I'd never done anything historical before, so it was an opportunity to branch out.
No, I know that was the biggest surprise. Actually, is that the people who stuck with particularly people who stuck with the show to the end, loved it. I mean, I think it's the same with all premium cable shows. Generally, it takes a few episodes to get there, and then once you're there, you invest heavily, and that seems to be. I mean, just the nicest stuff said, and people being absolutely lovely, and same to you, I think.
Yeah, also I think people at the beginning were wrestling with I had always called it a historical fantasy, and so some critics took us to task for, taking choices that weren't historically accurate, whereas I had said from the beginning,
that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. But now
it doesn't matter how many times you say it.
I know. But now that we've done that, everybody's fine with it, and now they're saying, oh, well what other characters like Dracula can he meet and whatnot, so that we've gotten over that hump. And people, it's found its audience, and it's built, and it did quite well for Starz, and now we're talking about season 3, so it's cool. I mean, he was only in a walk on the first season, but Torquemada was the leader of the Spanish Inquisition, and this season we're adding, there are a couple others that I can't mention that are kind of surprises near the end of the season, historical figures, but one that's quite fun is Amerigo Vespucci, who America is named after. And he joins the cast in episode 2.
Episode 2, yeah.
And what was fun, we were reading up about him, is, he's one of these famous explorers that he's up there with Columbus. But you read about him, they describe him as this kind of shameless promoter, this sort of Sammy Glick character who, maybe wasn't that great an explorer, but just named a lot of shit after himself. And that's kind of our take on him in the show.